Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Ivana Harinkyu if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is November the 8th. It is Monday, and probably, if you're like us, probably a lot of you are recovering after a long football weekend, a lot of good games on this weekend, and a lot of games that probably left a lot of us feeling frustrated. So we're going to talk about one of those this morning. Now, I am joined today by our Auburn beat reporter, Nubias Wilborn. He is here to talk about the game, analyze a little bit of what we saw, and also what Auburn can expect coming forward. So, Nubias, I know that there's a lot to talk about here. We're going to get to it in a minute, but I have to say that as a struggling Auburn fan, I understand. And I tweeted this morning, we're going to talk about the tragedy that is Auburn football right now. And there's a lot of people who are very upset about that wording. So, do you think that that is a fair word to describe this team, or at least what this team is becoming right now? Or do you think that's a little bit harsh?
Well, last week's game was a tragic offensive performance. That is fair. Do I think that's indicative of what the season has been? No. I mean, listen, they're 6-3. They lost the game to Georgia, the best team in the country. And Georgia came in, Jordan Hare, as I've learned, and pretty much beat the hell out of Auburn. I mean, they just did in every phase of the aspect. The game in Penn State, I don't know if I was covering Penn State at the time for the Post-Gazette, my old paper. And so I got to see Auburn from the different side. And I thought they played a pretty good game for the most part against Penn State. Penn State was a little better that day. As we have seen, Penn State's got their own troubles. They had quarterback injuries, so on and so forth. But that day, Sean Clifford was healthy, and he outperformed Bo Nix. All right, now against Texas A&M, the offense didn't score, but you got to look at the defense. The defense didn't give up a touchdown. It's very difficult to lose by 17 points. Your defense doesn't give up a touchdown. Somehow Auburn managed to do that. A lot of it was just Bo Nix didn't seem to have enough time. He didn't seem comfortable, didn't seem to get his feet set on passes. There seemed to be continuous misconnections between him and the receivers. You only had two receivers had one catch each. John Samuel Shanker led all pass catchers with 47 yards. Tank Bigsby led all rushers with 64 yards. Meanwhile, Texas A&M, their two star running backs nearly went over 100 yards each. Spiller went over 112, or Kane went for 98. And he probably could have gotten 100, if it had a yard or two there. Big difference when they're running the ball, controlling the line of scrimmage, and you aren't. And that's really where the game started and won for Auburn.
Well, again, I look, I'm going to stand by that word because this game was kind of a tragedy, right? And Auburn's defense, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the offense is just not cutting it, right? You've got Bo Nix, who is inconsistent at best, and we are seeing that Brian Harsin continues to put his faith in Bo Nix, but it doesn't seem like that's paying off right now.
Well, I mean, listen, you had a game where one of your top offensive linemen, Brandon Counts, was out of the game. All right, the protection packages did not look as good as they did against Ole Miss and Arkansas. Also, Bo Nix threw the ball 41 times. Well, in the wins against Arkansas and the wins against Ole Miss, he threw the ball around about 28, 30 times. Those extra 11 passes tend to lead to different chaos because you cannot establish consistency in the running game. You look at Auburn's record when they have a 100-yard rusher like Tank Bigsby did against Ole Miss the previous week, well, they have a pretty good chance of winning. There has to be more of a balance in the offense. There wasn't that balance. That's part of the struggle. The pass protection wasn't the same, nor was the run blocking. I can't put that all on Bo Nix. Now, yes, were there some times where Bo Nix overthrew the ball? Were there some times we had cases of happy feet where he kind of danced around a little bit, maybe rushed the play? Yeah. But when you got that big old 6'5", 280-pound dude who runs a 4.5 chasing you, let me tell you, Ivana, that ain't fun. And that was what was happening to Bo Nix all day out there at Kyle Field and those crazy 109,000 fans. I mean, Jesus, there was a lot of people at that stadium, by the way, in Kyle Field.
Oh, I can imagine that. And we know that the 12th man there is ever present. Now let's talk a little bit about defense. Now I looked at some stats this morning that we had on AL.com, and Auburn is now ranked 16, I believe. But some good news here for the Tigers is that the red zone defense has improved drastically. Now, just looking at some of these numbers, are 6th in the SEC in red zone defense. Overall, they are, I believe, 3rd in the SEC. So this is good news for Auburn. This is good news for their defense. So right now, what is the problem? Is the problem that we can't seem to connect offense and defense into making a stellar team? Is the issue coaching? Is the issue that Brian Harsin came in to a class that was not his own, and he does not have a team of his own chosen players and recruited players?
Yes. No, I mean, seriously, I mean, it's a combination.
All of the above.
I mean, it's a combination of different factors because it's not just one thing that causes a loss. I mean, as they say, it's a team game. At best, football at its best, at its purest, is an 11-person chess battle on each and every play. And if it works, you have the majority of those guys winning a battle against their individual guy on each play. And there are times on offense when that doesn't happen enough. On defense in the red zone, they have managed to really constrict that defense, make it very hard for offense to score. I mean, you look at that Texas A&M game, one of the reasons why – that game was 3-3 really going darn near into the fourth quarter. Then it was 6-3. And up until the Bo Nix fumble, the game was only a 6-point lead. Yes, it ended up being 17 points. And that looked bad. But that game was in the balance the whole time. Trust me, I have somebody who's trying to write that game on deadline and trying to figure out, okay, which way is this game going to go? What are your narratives? What are your angles? Because, again, it's a game where, okay, if Auburn wins it, now they got a chance to win out, and you have a very important Iron Bowl. You still can have an important Iron Bowl, but it will start with how they play against Mississippi State, who, by the way, lost because their field goal kicker seemed to blow a game. So now, so much so to where the head coach, Mike Leach, talking about having open tryouts, right? So can you beat Mississippi State at home? Can you go up to South Carolina, who, by the way, beat Florida like they stole something, so much so where Florida fired 2 of its assistant coaches over the weekend? And then can you come back and finish the season out, maybe spoil things for Alabama? So that's what you got to look at now for Auburn. And to answer your question, it is a combination of things. Brian Harsin's offense under Mike Bobo is trying to do something different than Gene Chidge's offense did. You know what I'm saying? So they're trying to do something different. They're trying to do something different than Coach Malzahn did, the whole thing. So it takes time to change that culture. It's a different culture, and it takes time.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. So are we being, and when I say we, I mean a collective we, right? Just Auburn fans, SEC fans, and college football fans. Are we being too harsh on Brian Harsin? We know that Brian Harsin has made news outside of football and into the actual hard news sector with coronavirus and with vaccines and things of that sort. Are we letting that bleed into football and we are going a little bit too hard on Brian Harsin? Or is it kind of impossible to separate the controversy that he's creating with what he's doing on the field?
Ooh, golly, that's a tough question there. But I sound like one of the players when I ask so hard. To be honest with you, because of look what happened to Aaron Rodgers up there in Green Bay. All right, he had to miss a game, might miss 2 games, That could cost you seeding. That could cost you everything. Like when I covered Penn State, the head coach, James Franklin there, very pro-vaccination guy. Now, again, listen, we're in different states. People take this stuff weird. I'm not trying to upset nobody with the vaccine stuff. I'm vaccinated. I mask. That's my choice. I try to respect the choices of others, but I also keep my distance. That being said, it is very difficult to separate them because if there's an outbreak on a team, then that could cost you games. And not only games, we're still learning what this virus is and what it does. What happens to that young man afterwards? What if he's someone who gets long COVID because the coach didn't take it seriously and they're not modeling those behaviors? And if you got recruits coming in, by the way, December 8th is coming up. Is he vaccinated? Is he not? Now, he's not going to tell us. He didn't have to tell me anything. He didn't have to tell you anything. But if I were a recruit, and I've spoken to a couple, there are some concerns. Now, if you're Auburn, okay, you're still a big boy major player. You are. And I do think Auburn fans need to really realize what they are as a program, what they are as a university, what they have. I know sometimes the little brother syndrome gets in there or whatever, right? But Auburn does have a lot of resources. You have proximity to Atlanta. You have the talent-rich area. You have a lot of the infrastructure that it could take to win at the level you want to. But it's also hard, as you know, when your main rival are those guys in Tuscaloosa who wear that crimson and cream, right? Okay? So take that away from it. But when you talk about Harsin, it's very difficult to extract his non-stance on vaccinations from the football because you can't help but wonder how those attitudes fester. from people I've spoken to, they seem to be focused on the football. They seem to respect his coaching. And yeah, the Texas A&M loss is a tough loss. That road game is tough. Also, another factor is traveling out of Auburn to get to these road games and get to some of these places isn't easy. When they went to Penn State, they had to get to Atlanta, fly to Pittsburgh, and then drive 2 hours from Pittsburgh to State College. And as someone who lived up in Pennsylvania, that is not a fun drive. And that's just that part of it, let alone having to fly to Pittsburgh. Now, again, you're going to College Station. Not an easy place to get to from here. Those little, again, and I'm not making excuses, but these are factors that you have to factor in when you have a new team, a new coaching staff, a bunch of different infrastructure things that they're trying to figure out to create the most comfortable environment for the team. So, yeah, it's going to take a while, and he's got to get better players because, quite honestly, that offensive line didn't get it done. I'm not blaming them, but they didn't get it done. And that's just what it is. And that has to be changed there. But that comes over time. Again, it's man's first year, but this is the SEC. And because we have created a situation where everything we do is about that national championship, it makes a very difficult situation for winning and losing.
Well, the stakes are high here in the SEC. There's no denying that. The stakes are high and the expectations are high, which is honestly even tougher. I want to add one quick comment that I had, and I just wish that everybody felt this way as Mitzi. I know nobody does, but she says, I love both Alabama teams. I just love Alabama. So you know what?
Aww.
This is a shout out here. Can we all be a little bit more like you today? And let's add not just both Alabama teams, meaning two, but all of them there.
Yeah, so, shout out to UAB, Southern Alabama, the Alabama State, Alabama A&M, man. Listen, the better, what they say, rising tide floats all boats, man.
Look, I love it. Love the positivity on this Monday. I will try to dial back, I think, my criticism here of Auburn and after this game. So, New Bias, thank you so much. I know you have come in mid-season in a very tumultuous season. There's a lot going on, but we are thankful to have you in Alabama, in Auburn, and covering this team for us. So thank you so much for your expertise today. I know you have another show to get to in just a few minutes.
Right.
So thank you so much for everything. Everybody watching, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.